Hello! Today is July 1st, the very first day of July, which is why it is called July 1st.
Indeed.
2014, and you're listening to I Think You Think. We are your hosts. My name is Justin. This is...
James.
And way over there is...
Jennifer.
Jennifer is joining us from... Tell me what you kind of work with.
Well, I'm actually involved in the city of Elgin. I'm the president of our neighborhood association, which is called Nearwest Neighbor Association. And like the name says, we are located just west of the Fox River, along Route 31 between Walnut Avenue and Highland Avenue in Elgin.
And for those who don't know, Elgin is sat right on top of a river. Well, the river runs through it.
It does.
You can see it. It's not over the top of it.
Yeah, it's not like we built the city over. We built this city on rock and roll.
Not the city. That's the one over.
Anyway, we are a weekly topical podcast that focus on what we think, also what you think. So feel free to email us, which you will see the links down there and such. Check us out on Facebook. All of the links are on the website, which is ithinkyouthink.com. And such. I always forget, you know, we always talk about, like, because we're all about the video now, that there is a podcast that takes place. It is a podcast.
Some people can't see us.
Some people can't see us at all. You don't know if James has a beard still, or if he is wearing pants.
He does currently have a beard.
Oh,
spoilers.
Man. Oh,
damn it.
Ouch. She might be
I'm
lying.
right back. I got to shave the beard.
I was going to say she might be lying, but now you've
confirmed it.
It's true. It's true.
Anyway, I Think You Think is produced by StolenArts Productions. We always like to thank Alex and the Anders for the music at the beginning and the end, StravaMax.com for making the original graphic for us, little thought bubbles. And please like and share the podcast, like and share the vidcast, do all of those things because it's cool and people will like you for it. At least we will. Make sure you comment on the video because we will read them. We most likely will respond. Except, I can't remember the guy's name that commented on our Elliot Rogers, but thank you. I appreciate the comment. Good luck in life. There you are. Also, I Drink, You Drink is at the end of this month.
It's true.
So, for those who do not know, if you are just joining us for the first time, I Drink, You Drink is a once every quarter. It's every 3 months, basically, when there's a 5th Wednesday in the month. Doesn't really matter why it's Wednesday, it's just the way it is. The 5th Wednesday in the month we get together for the I Drink, You Drink, where we drink and talk about stuff, and it's normally a lot of fun, and people tend to like it the most.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
So our topic is going...
Drunken podcasting.
Yeah. Our topic is going to be hypothetical questions. So start thinking of them now. Post them in the comments. Maybe
What if
we'll
we had a
use them.
podcast where we drank and there were hypothetical questions? It's probably going to be my hypothetical question.
Anyway, moving on. Jen is here with us. Jennifer, what do you go by?
I usually go by Jen,
Jen.
actually.
Okay,
So we'll
all
go
right.
with that.
Yeah, so when you have a name like that where you have like 14 different ways that people can pronounce it, you're always afraid you're going to offend them. I don't go by that.
Well, I tell you what, I had classes in high school where there was 4 of us, and the teacher would assign us each a designated nickname. So finally, once I was an adult, I just picked my own.
So does that mean at some point in time in your life you were Jenny?
Only people that know me when I was 5 know me as Jenny. There are still a couple people out there that knew me then that still call me that, and they are the only people that can call me that, and it sounds normal.
Yeah.
Everybody else, it's like, who are you talking to?
Yeah. Who's here?
Yeah.
So we had some big news here in Chicago. I don't know if you all heard about this, but we didn't win the bid for the 2016 Olympics, you know. However, we did win the bid for the Star Wars Museum that's coming to Chicago.
Jar Jar Binks coming to Chi-Town. No, that's not what you're excited about. No?
Yeah. Maybe we can section that off its own little wing where no one goes.
Cleveland can get Jar Jar.
It's an extra $100 to get into the wing with Jar Jar. Anyway, moving on. So what's going on in everybody's life? James?
For me,
work.
Yeah, it's true. Found a new game I've been enjoying on Steam, Path of Exile. Been playing that quite a bit. just found out the other day that my little brother is married. What? Congratulations,
How did that happen
Ryan.
and you didn't know it?
They're gonna do it like in maybe like a year. They're gonna do a real ceremony and everything. But yeah, married and gonna be a father in like 7 months.
Wow, cool.
So, congratulations, Ryan
Yeah,
and Stephanie.
Excellent.
Congrats to James' brother.
It's kind of what?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? What do you got going on in your life?
Well, actually, this past weekend was pretty exciting. I went to go see Ziggy Marley at the Vic downtown. It was on Sunday, right after Pride was wrapping up, and it was quite a debacle down there. It was a fantastic concert, and got down there. Bus was parked right out front. Got pictures with his bus. Got right up to the front because it was general admission, and it was a fantastic concert.
I am an uncultured bastard. I have no idea who you were talking about.
Ziggy Marley.
Yeah.
Bob Marley's.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. I knew the Marley, but I wasn't
Yeah.
sure. Is it the same? Okay.
Yeah, that is Bob Marley's oldest son. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. And he did like reggae stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean
a little bit.
Reggae. I mean, all three of the sons are. It's okay. All three of the sons are, reggae artists. They all kind of have their own style. I mean, as you can imagine, they all have sampled their father's stuff to some degree. But, Ziggy's been, an active musician in his own right, songwriting and whatnot for quite a long time. I think he's almost 40 now. So, he played some of his stuff, old stuff, new stuff. One of the most memorable moments was he covered One Love. And, I mean, I don't know if anybody's ever seen a video of him before, but he looks exactly like his father, and it was chilling. So
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. His kids were actually off stage listening and had the little earphones on, and they had little maracas, and it was a family experience. It was great.
Very adorable.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Lately, I've been trying to sleep and not being able to sleep. I've been working on some stuff, so stuff for StolenArts and I Think You Think, and so it's kind of robbed me of sleep. And then other than that, work, of course, because, when you're not doing fun things, you're working.
That's what we do in America.
True.
It's true. I think I've taken one vacation so far this entire
In your
year.
life? Oh.
Yeah, in my life. In my life. I think I was in kindergarten.
You poor man.
Oh.
So, we are talking about what Jenn does. She, as she had said, she works with her neighborhood association. We're in the process of trying to work with the Downtown Neighborhood Association for Elgin, with the harvest market that's in the area. For those who are interested, if you're watching the video, you will be able to watch the intro for that video series that we're doing for them. I'll put it at the end of the podcast, so it's not like in the middle of this, but there you go. So check it out. It's at the end. And but we want to talk about some of the stuff that you're doing in your neighborhood association.
All right. Well, first I'll just kind of, talk about why I got involved in my neighborhood association. I've lived in my house for 5.5 years now, and I live in a neighborhood that, by what most Americans would consider to be less than ideal. We have some crime statistics. It is a mixed neighborhood, a lot of diverse economic range as well. But in all honesty, that all of those reasons are one of the reasons are reasons that I moved there, because I have a 7-year-old son, and I firmly believe that sheltering our kids from the problems in the world is really doing them a disservice in the long run. I also believe that when you have issues like that and you just complain about it, but you don't actually actively do anything about it, then you're part of the problem. So that was one of my motivations for getting involved. I had a neighbor that lived just up the street from me who had been managing the neighborhood association, and he was looking for somebody to kind of take over for him as he was getting a little older, and kind of was courting me about it for a couple years. And what finally pushed me over the edge was I actually got attacked by a dog. And James remembers this.
I do remember that.
I got attacked by a dog across the street from my house, and the dog just butterflied my whole arm wide open. the owner was, you know, managing the situation completely irresponsibly. They had the dog chained up outside alone, and just everything that ensued as a result of that kind of made me feel like, you know, this was my time to become more involved so that things like this are not happening in the future. You know, if we don't stand up and say something, then, you know, you're, like I said, you could be, you know, part of the problem. So I finally got involved in the neighborhood association last year at the beginning of the year, and I kind of took over as vice president at that time. And the neighborhood association was somewhat defunct. They brought me in as somebody to kind of rejuvenate it, and we pretty much reformatted what we were doing and relaunched it. And our idea was to make something like this work for busy families that, you know, people don't have a lot of time now. Like we were saying, like, it's all about work. You got a family. Everybody's got a lot of activities. Like, we're all busy, including us that are running it. So we wanted to put it in a format where people were going to be able to get information easily and, you know, kind of really launch this into the, you know, into the 21st century. So I developed a Facebook page for us so that we could, you know, keep our followers in the loop in like real time. And we also have quarterly meetings instead of, you know, the old format was to have monthly meetings. We have quarterly meetings once per season. And then we try to have like fun community building events in between there just to, you know, bring people together and help people like build relationships with their neighbors, because it just doesn't seem like people do that naturally anymore.
No. Yeah.
So we wanted to kind of put a format in place where it was like, you know, more opportunities for people to like care about who they live next to and who lives down the street. And, you know, that's really what builds a community, is people that give a damn about that guy across the street over there, you know?
Right.
Rather than just, I'm going to go into my house and I'm going to pretend like nobody else exists. So that's pretty much, you know, the motivation behind it and whatnot. And what we're trying to do right now is obviously build an audience. One of the biggest resources we have as a neighborhood is that it's old. We have a lot of historic homes. There's a lot of history in the neighborhood, and in all honesty, that is our resource. That is what we're hoping will bring people there in the future. That, you know, people want to buy these amazing old homes. You know, people have a lot of pride in something that is well built and has history, and that they can be a part of the history of their home. So we're trying to put resources in place for the people living within the neighborhood to, you know, participate in the plaque program, which is through the City of Elgin.
Tell us a little bit about what the plaque program might be.
Well, the plaque program, City of Elgin has a well, I guess it's an office called the Heritage Commission, and that's basically the department downtown that is responsible for any and all historic preservation efforts.
Okay.
So they have the plaque program. I'm not sure how long it's been around, but it's been around ever since I was a kid, so it's been a while. So in excess of 25 years.
Careful, you date yourself then. Yeah.
Anyway, so it's basically your house is registered with on a city registry, and there's a plaque on the front of your house that says what year it was built and who it was built by. And in order to get one, you have to go through like an application process, and you have to have some information as to, you know, obviously when your house was built. You have to do the research,
right?
Or you have to get somebody to do the research for you, and then they basically go through like a selection process, and they want to select homes that are being well maintained and and basically properly cared for, to send that kind of message, because it's really about having pride in your house,
right?
To want to do this. A lot of people have misconceptions about it though, because it differs from having a house that's like a nationally registered historic home.
Okay.
Which, when you have that, it can limit you as to what you can do to your house. Like, you have to follow certain guidelines to preserve the history of the home. With the city registry, it's really just about pride and ownership, and you know, sending a message as a city, as a group, that you know, our houses are important to us, and that we want them to be around, and we want people to know about them, because, like I said, that's our resource here, is our history in Elgin.
Well, I know that that's news to me, because I always thought that if you were part of that you could only use certain colors on your home and things like that, because I know the national one that you were talking about.
Right.
you have to be careful about keeping that style and
Right,
you know.
right. Well, and the reasoning behind, well, let me back up just a little bit here. We actually do within Elgin have 4 historic districts. And when you are in a historic district, that's basically a place that is nationally registered, that
Okay.
the whole neighborhood is a site.
Right.
You
Okay.
can also have an individual building that is registered, and that's what I was describing previously. But both of those entities, you do have to follow like design guidelines. And
Okay.
like I was saying about the Heritage Commission office, they're the ones that review that for the historic districts in Elgin. My neighborhood is actually not currently a historic district. It's something that we would really like to explore in the future. But as you can imagine, there's a lot of controversy when you put guidelines like that in place, you know, with existing people that have been within a neighborhood. So that's something that we're trying to hopefully work towards as a neighborhood association that I'm a part of.
In that situation, though, some people would actually have to change things to their homes if they'd like updated something that was not.
No, it actually doesn't work like that. That's another misconception. If you were going to have your place registered in and of itself, that might be the case, or they just wouldn't grant you status as a historic monument. But if you live within a historic district, they don't go around telling you what you need to do to your house. It's pretty much anytime you're going to have major work done,
Mhm.
you have to go to the design review committee.
Okay.
And there's a really fantastic network of contractors within Elgin that are very skilled and experienced at going through this process and working with this process. And there's actually, one of the benefits is there's a ton of grant money available to get the work done. So if there was going to be, say, an additional cost because, you know,
You have to use
you
a
have to use certain
kind of,
materials,
right.
or, you know, you're building to a certain design or whatnot, there's grant monies available for that because you're in a historic district.
Okay.
So
how does you said you're part of the Northwestern?
Nearwest Neighbors.
I'm sorry,
yeah.
Nearwest. Yes.
Yes.
How do you determine what is the neighborhood? Because like, there's the downtown neighbor. I mean, like, how do you say, okay, it's from this street to this street? You
Well,
know?
there are kind of when you live in an area, there are kind of natural divides based on like major streets and whatnot. Some of the neighborhoods have, I mean, it's pretty much the people that come together that form this non-for-profit organization decided the boundaries. And actually, we're going to be reviewing our boundaries this summer and potentially expanding, because you know, as time goes on, you know, the group or whatnot, or where you feel like the edges of the neighborhood are, kind of can change and evolve over time when you're living in a place where, you know, they started building houses over there in the 1840s.
Wow.
Okay.
So yeah, the oldest house in our
I was
neighborhood is
still
built in
in second
1846. Man, you're old, James.
I know.
About
True.
time over here.
The old man over
Can't
here.
you see? Can't you see how big the beard has gotten?
Man, got some grays.
You know, just a few.
It's down to his knees. But if you're just listening to the podcast, you can't see that.
Now you can.
Not if you're listening to the podcast, though. Don't listen.
So, you know, the boundaries that we have were set up by the original members that founded our group at that time. So I think it was back in the mid-90s.
Okay. So I know that Elgin has a pretty rich, very detailed, relatively detailed for most cities. I mean, Elgin has you said the Heritage Society. I know that they've got several museums.
Right. There's actually 4 museums in Elgin.
Oh, I only knew of like the 2 possibly.
4.
Oh, because I was thinking the firehouse is the 3rd.
Yeah, the Fire Barn Museum, which is down off of, I can't think of the street right now.
It's 20. It's not 25. It's the one to the west of 25.
It's off of Villa. It's
Yep.
it's kind of just south of the boat. And then there is the Historic Society Museum, which is located on the site of the Elgin Academy,
Yep.
in the old Elgin Academy building. They call it Old Main. That's managed by the Historic Society. And then there is a museum inside Lord's Park, which is the Elgin History Museum.
Anthropology, History and Anthropology Museum.
They have a fascinating collection there, and they have traveling exhibits. And then there is the Elgin Police Museum, which I believe is at City Hall. It's either at City Hall or the police department. Pretty sure it's at City Hall.
They're right across the street
Right,
from
they're
each
across
other.
the street
So.
if anybody wants to know. So if you're lost, just ask a policeman. They'll direct you. There's lots of them over there. So yeah, we have our history in Elgin, goes back quite a ways, and was, our history was we were a very developed, established area very early on compared to some of the surrounding suburbs and whatnot, because we were a center of industry.
Because of watches, right?
Elgin Watches was one of the biggest company. Well, it was the biggest company. It was the largest employer. I don't have the dates in range, but
it's all right. It'll be on the test later.
They were huge. They were huge. They were the largest employer in town. But there was also, a shoe factory. There were several publishing houses.
Yes.
Brethren Publishing was a huge one. Actually, the lady that lived in my house, the first family that lived in my house, the gentleman worked at the watch factory. His name was Henry Becker. And he was a carpenter for the watch factory. And his wife worked for the Brethren Publishing House, which was managed by the Church of the Brethren, which is still in the neighborhood.
Wow.
I think one of the Bibles I own at home that was given to me by my grandmother was actually published in Elgin.
Brethren, most likely. Yeah, there was a shoe factory. There was Elgin stoves. There was a million and one things that were made in Elgin. And actually, at the Elgin Historic Society Museum, they have some really fantastic exhibits about all the different things that were made in Elgin and all the companies that were based here. But basically, we were a center of industry. And we were easily accessible by railroad from Chicago.
Yep.
And I think one of the things that really helped build and develop our success in industry was the Chicago fire, because a lot of companies moved their work or, their offices and things like that out here. A lot of newspaper money, moved out here, and that would be like the Gold Coast neighborhood down by the old Sherman Hospital.
Okay.
So since you've taken over the neighborhood association, it's been 3 years?
It's only been about a year and a half. I actually just took over as president earlier this year.
Okay.
So,
But it feels like 3 years.
yeah.
Well, what's your biggest achievement so far? What are you most happy with? What progress or?
Well, I would have to say our progress so far is really that we're developing, our following has really increased exponentially. When I first started the Facebook page, it had been started by a couple other members, and there was about 10 people following us. Now we have almost 140, and we're reaching some of these other groups and people in the city at large, not just within our neighborhood. We've had some really successful events. Last year, the Elgin Historic House Tour was within our borders. My house was actually on the tour. That is run by Gifford Park Association. They're another neighborhood group, much like our own, but they were the first ones. They were kind of the pioneers for historic preservation in Elgin. And some of the people that live in Gifford Park, I mean, that's the oldest neighborhood in Elgin. Elgin was founded by the Giffords, so that's,
wow.
That's over here on the east side. So we actually have hosted, we hosted a historic walking tour last year during the house tour. We had about 85 people show up. And it was so successful that we just hosted a repeat of it this past weekend, and we had another about 20-25 people show up. One of the projects that we're working on right now is, as I said, we have a house that was built in 1846. It was owned by one of the founding families of Elgin, and it's now currently owned by the city. We're trying to get the city to renovate it and rehab it, because it's been boarded up for 6 years, and they kind of shelved the project during the recession. So that's our current project right now that is really gaining some momentum. So I would say that's our biggest success right now, is just having hosted some really successful events and having a following.
And is that house actually in your neighborhood?
Yes, it is actually in our neighborhood. It's on the corner of Chicago Street and Crystal Street.
Okay.
So
the rehab, we had talked a little bit about it before. You're not attempting to rehab it into a living, like a dwelling place.
Well, the purpose of it is, something that we're still exploring, like what the options are for it. But we're trying to collaborate with some other groups down here, and with the city as well, because they're the owners, and trying to, come together to, establish a purpose for it, and also potentially to have a better way of going about getting the house restored, because there's been a fire there. It was actually used for prostitution. when the city bought it. It was a house of ill repute. And that was one of the reasons that they bought it, was to shut down business. So,
oh well, the city owns it
you know,
now. I'm not going there
on the
anymore.
corner, so
All the street cred's gone.
so, you know, I mean, at least that got shut down, because that would have been awkward walking down the street.
You know.
But it's been boarded up for, you know, a lot of us in the neighborhood now, you know, seen it boarded up for a number of years, and it's I mean, the reality is it's hurting all of our property values. And,
right.
And, you know, people are trying to sell their homes, people are trying to buy homes, and you know, all of that activity affects what your property is worth.
Right.
And when you got that boarded up house down the street that's owned by the city, it's kind of hard to explain it 5-6 years later. So that's kind of one of our big motivation, you know, points that we're trying to use right now with the city, and just having meetings and whatnot.
You always go with the, well, at least it's not a brothel anymore.
I mean, that's kind of what they've been saying to me, actually.
What's the big, like, what's holding it up right now?
What's holding it up right now is cost. The history of the project is that it was actually initiated by the former mayor, Ed Schock, and so there was an administration change, and the new mayor, Dave Captain, shelved the project because, like, the estimates and whatnot that had been collected by the previous mayor were extremely exorbitant, and this was right before the recession really took hold.
Right.
So they actually, like, had this idea, the former mayor had this idea that they were going to turn it into a LEED certified, like, green building, and it was going to be the first one in the city.
Okay.
But all of those, like, state-of-the-art systems and whatnot really drove up the price, and it was going to cost something like $450,000 to restore it.
Wow.
And they spent way too much money on it as it is.
Would that been back in, like, 2002, 2003?
They bought it in 2009.
Okay, so, okay. All right.
So, if you, yeah, I mean, it wasn't 2009.
Okay, so the housing bubble
decline.
recession.
Yeah,
okay,
right,
all right.
exactly.
I was thinking because the recession started in, like,
Right.
03 and 04.
No, but I mean, as far as, like, the real estate.
Right,
So,
got it. I understand.
you know, the argument was that, well, if we spent over $200,000 on this house already, and then we put another, you know, $400,000 into it, then we essentially have, like, a $500,000 home in the neighborhood where the rest of the surrounding area can't keep up. So, like, one of the arguments for making it not a residence is that, and making it into a public building.
Okay.
One of the concepts that we have right now was, you know, actually speaking with some of the board members at the Historic Society. You know, they manage the museum, and they basically let me know that they could really benefit from additional space and, like, a satellite property. So that's kind of something that we're exploring right now, to make it into a public use space. And
a public use space for, like, the museum?
Right.
Okay.
Right. So, you know, somewhere that they could host school groups, or they could, you know, house some of their collection, because their archives are really extensive, and, you know, so a lot of stuff is not even on display.
Okay.
So,
So what are some ways that people can help with that? Is there any way that anybody can help?
well, I mean, I would say definitely attending our meetings, following the Nearwest Neighbors Association on Facebook is a good way to keep a pulse on what's going on with the project, because, you know, coming to our meetings and whatnot.
And the link for that will be in the underbar of the video. It'll also be in the information on the Libsyn page for the podcast.
You know, if this project really starts taking off, we're going to be having additional events and whatnot, and it's really about interest. You know, the city really wants to see that people are interested, which is why we hosted the tour last weekend. You know, additional people that wouldn't have even known about it saw it through advertising, and now they know about the project. So, you know, that's really what it's going to come down to, as to whether or not the city wants to open their purse strings. But there is, you know, potentially opportunity to do the restoration with grant money and whatnot as well. So that's something that we're exploring. I think a lot of people don't realize this either, that when the riverboat came to Elgin, part of how that contract is set up with the city is that a certain amount of money, revenue, that is raised by the riverboat goes into an account that is used by the city that can only be used for, like, infrastructure and whatnot. And,
Right.
And, you know, like beautification, restoration, like, you know,
Basically all the stuff that they've done down by
facilities
the river walk.
maintenance and whatnot. Yeah, anybody that's walked through downtown Elgin, there was a 6-year project to redo the cityscape, and it's in the final phase now. and all those nice hand-bricked sidewalks, and
Yep.
some of you might have been to Festival Park, and now we're hosting all those fantastic concerts down there. Like, you know, all of that money did not come from taxpayers. That all came from the riverboat. So, you know, there's an account in place that has a budget and whatnot that, you know, that this isn't just coming out of people's pockets, and I think a lot of people like to know that as well.
It's important to know. I mean, sometimes people, especially when it comes to taxes, are concerned about how it's being spent and everything, how their money's being used. So it's nice to know that.
I feel that way. I would absolutely agree.
So it's nice to know that the money is coming from the
Right,
riverboat, which,
right.
for those who may not know, we have this gigantic riverboat where you can
Grand
go
Victoria
and,
Casino on
yeah,
National
lose your money.
Street.
Yep.
It's actually on part of the property for the old watch factory. So
Oh, yeah,
that's
yep.
kind of interesting to know as well.
Yeah, I think that maybe it's further up north along the river, but there's a series of apartment complexes there that used to be the housing for the Elgin Watch Factory. So
Yeah.
people would live there. They'd walk basically down to the river where the
Right.
factory was to work.
Right. Yeah. There's a number of like historic apartment buildings actually that you know, and a lot of some of the smaller houses that you see in Elgin were like basically like workers' cottages, you know, for just some of the workers. I mean, we have all these grand Victorian homes and you know, huge mansions and whatnot, but some of the smaller homes, those were all, you know, factory workers.
Yeah, if you just take a drive up Highland heading west, there's a lot of big Victorian homes.
Yeah, yeah. Some of the main streets, like down State Street, that was like considered Millionaire's Row up on the hill overlooking the city. Down Highland, like you said, down off of Douglas Avenue and Spring Street, that's considered like the Gold Coast area. There was a lot of newspaper money and whatnot that came from Chicago and built their palaces down there. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. They're just incredible. You know, some of these houses, there's actually one for sale right now on Lawrence that has the entire third floor is the ballroom.
Wow.
It's just fantastic. They just don't make them like that anymore, so.
No, it probably costs quite a bit to heat and cool.
It kind of depends on, I mean, there's
How
certain
often
ways
do you
to
need
go
to
about
use the
it.
ballroom?
Well, I don't know. My house
Every
is
morning to drink my coffee.
Yeah, my house is considerably smaller than that, but, you know, I mean, it can get a little pricey for the heating, but there's certain things you can do, and, you know, actually, most of them are pretty effective, like, just the way they built houses then, they didn't have air conditioning, so they cool themselves relatively effectively just based on, like, the window placement and whatnot, and all those tall windows to let the heat out the top, and, like, transom windows and stuff like that. Like, they were pretty smart before they had air conditioning as to like how to cool it down. So I don't even really use my air conditioning that much in the summer.
You got anything else you wanted to ask?
You know, not really. I think it's important though that people do get involved in their community when you get the opportunity, because that's what can really make a difference to what's going on around.
I know from a personal experience, I didn't even realize a lot of these community things were around until you and I started getting involved
Right.
in the area, and it's really exciting because you get to meet all these different people and do all these really interesting things, and they're more than happy to have you. Like, they're like super excited to have you want to help them, and so that's cool. So if you
Right.
want a place that you can feel like, you know, you
Right, and I
belong.
mean a lot of you know, a lot of them, like my group and some of these other groups, host, you know, events and whatnot that, I mean, are very low cost or free. And I mean, how often is anything free anymore? So
This podcast is free.
No, it's not. It's not for me.
Okay, and on that note, well, thank you for coming out. Thank you for joining
Absolutely.
us. Appreciate it. You're going to stick around for the next show, right?
certainly will.
All right, so you will see Jen next week. We are talking about alternative energy sources and solar-powered streets.
What?
Yeah, I know, right?
The way of the future.
So if it is after that show has gone on, you know, check out the video. If not, you're just going to have to wait, and we will see you next week. Thanks for joining us.
Watch the promo video. Here it goes.